Hari Om. Om Gananam Tva Ganapatigam Havamahe Kavim Kavinam Upamashravastamam Jeshtarajam Brahmanam Brahmanaspata Anashunvannotibhis Siddha Sadhanam Om Mahaganadhipataye Namaha. Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Namaste. Param Vedanta team extends a very warm welcome to you all for the second session of Introduction to Upanishad. Friends, January month is a very significant for us, as this is the month one of the greatest sons of India was born. Yes, I am talking about that patriotic saint who is known for introducing Vedanta to the Western world. Our Vedanta class will not be complete without remembering Swami Vivekananda on this occasion, whose 158th birth anniversary we celebrated on 12th January. His birthday is celebrated as National Youth Day. Who doesn't know the contribution of Swamiji in the field of Vedanta? He was a true Vedantin, a devout Hindu, and a great patriot. Once he was asked by someone, Swamiji, you are a sannyasi and you should not have any attachments. But why do you love your country so much? Swamiji's cryptic reply was, unless I love my mother first, how can I love her sisters? His call to the youth of the country, Uttishtata Jagrata Prapyavaran Nibodhata, is taken from Kathopanishad, which we are going to study. In the light of Swamiji's life and teachings, let us continue our study of Vedanta. In today's class, we will study a few more elementary aspects of Vedanta from our teachers led by Dr. Hegde sir. Before that, Dr. Divakar will quickly run through the topics we learned in our previous class. Over to you, Dr. Divakar.
Thank you, sir. Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. We will be entering into the world of Upanishads in a couple of weeks' time. Upanishads or Vedanta is the pinnacle of scriptural studies which deals with Brahmagnanam. In order to equip ourselves to understand the essence of Upanishads, we need to have a clear understanding and a solid foundation of Tattva Bodha, which deals with the fundamentals of the Vedanta. Therefore, 3 sessions are dedicated to get ourselves acquainted, familiarized with the Vedantic terminologies. It is strongly recommended that each seeker should do self-study of the study material and Tattva Bodha to internalize the terminologies and the concepts covering in these 3 sessions. So let's quickly recap some of the topics discussed in the last class. Purusharthas. Scriptures point out that purpose of the human birth is to accomplish 4-fold Purusharthas. Artha, covering basic needs, food, shelter, and the clothing. Kama, which covers the comforts, power, and the position. Dharma, leading a value-based righteous life. Dharmic life is giving more to the society than consuming. Moksha, which is the Parama Purushartha, which is liberation from samsara. Dharma, Artha, Kama are called as prayas, and Moksha is called Shreyas. All spiritual seekers' aim must be Moksha Purushartha. Then we saw how our scriptures, Shastras, are presented. Our pursuit of moksha is impossible without the guidance of Shastras and the Guru. We must use Shastra and Guru as pramanam, like our 6th sense organ. First and foremost, Vedic literature is called as Vedas, which are classified into Rig, Yajur, Sama, and Atharvana Veda. Vedas are believed to be apaurushaya, revelations from the Lord, and are passed on to the great rishis through Karna Parampara. Therefore, Vedas are called as Shrutis. Subsequent layers of scriptures, all emerging from the Vedas, are Sutras, Smritis, Puranas, Itihasas such as Ramayana and Mahabharata, and finally Bhashyams, commentaries from the great Acharyas such as Shankaracharya. We had an overview of 3 sadhanas or disciplines required to accomplish Moksha Purushartha. First sadhana is Karma Yoga, which is right action with right attitude. Right actions are Sattvika Karmas, and scriptures prescribe Pancha Mahayagna, daily duties towards God, scriptures, parents, fellow human beings and environment, and to other living beings. Right attitude is offering all the actions as a worship, Ishvara Arpana Bhava, and accepting any results arising from our actions gracefully as Ishvara Prasada Bhava. A karma yogi will do more and more of sattvikam karmas, less of rajasam karmas, and completely avoids tamasam karmas. Second sadhana visa was Upasana Yoga. It is personality conditioning program. We need to gain control over our physical health and use them as stepping stones to gain mastery over our mind. Mind mastery is the toughest task. Four broad types of meditations are discussed in Upasana Yoga. Relaxation meditation, aiming at relaxing our body and mind. Expansion meditation, called Vishwarupa Dhyanam, where meditating on the entire cosmos as God's manifestation, focusing our attention and concentration. And finally, value meditation, watching and changing our thoughts using spiritual wisdom as per Shastras. Uddharet Atmanatmanam. We need to lift and change our mind using our own mind. A refined mind is absolutely essential for the Gnana Yoga. Karma, then in the next slide, we see the eligible seeker then acquires Atma Gnanam through Gnana Yoga. Gnana Yoga. Gnana Yoga has three sequential components. Shravanam, which is a system, is reflecting on the teachings repeatedly to clear any doubts arising from Shravanam. And finally, Nididhyasanam, which is the Vedantic contemplative meditation required to internalize and live the knowledge every day and every moment. Nididhyasanam converts the intellectual knowledge to emotional strength, from Gnanam to Gnananishta and to Moksha. Finally, we looked into Bhakti Yoga, pure devotion and sincerity. It is not a separate discipline, but is a common sadhana required in all three yogas, karma, upasana, and gnana, as if it is like a string, a thread passing through all the yogas. In a nutshell, we need karma yoga to remove malam, the impurities in the mind, and upasana yoga to handle vikshepa, the restlessness, in order to calm our mind. Together, we gain Gnana Yogyata. Then, through Guru Shastra Pramana, gain Gnanam, which removes our Agnanam, ignorance, and then anchoring to Gnanam using Nididhyasanam will make us a Jivan Mukta. Hari Om, sir. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Divakar. This is a wonderful exercise for all of us to do. That is, as we listen to the class, if you are able to make class notes so that we are able to recap for ourselves what we have studied in this particular class. Om Akhanda Mandalakaram Vyaktam Yena Characharam Tatpadam Darshitam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha. Akhanda Mandalakaram. Akhanda is the indivisible Brahman. I make my respect, my prostration to that Akhanda Manda, that Brahma Tattvam, which is all pervading, which pervades everything, that which is moving and not moving. Tat Padam Darshitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. I offer my namaskara to that Guru who has given me an insight into that Brahma Tattvam. My salutations to my Guru. Today's class, we will deal with the various qualifications required for Brahma Vidya. There are four, it can be spoken as 4Ds: Viveka or discrimination, Vairagya or dispassion. I have underlined and highlighted the third qualification called Mumukshutva. That means if that desire is very strong in us, all the other qualifications will come. And finally, it is discipline or Shama Adi Shakta Sampatti. In the 9th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna begins by using these words. He says, Raja Vidya, Raja Guhyam, Pavitram Idam Uttamam. He's referring to Brahma Vidya. Pratyakshavagam Gamam Dharmyam Susukam Kartrur Avyayam. Sri Krishna says Brahma Vidya is Susukam, very, very easy. But you have a contradictory statement in the Kathopanishad. In the Kathopanishad, as spoken by Venkatesh Prasad, which has been a verse that has been popularized by Swami Vivekananda, the first line goes, this famous awake arise. Uttishtata jagrata prapyavaran nibodhata, which means arise awake until you have reached your goal. But the goal, the next line is a warning. Shurasya dhara nishita duratyaya durgam. It is extremely difficult. And the wise people say that the spiritual path is difficult. So finally, what is the answer? Is it easy or is it difficult? Swamiji gives us the answer. For a prepared student, Brahma Vidya can be susukam. For one who is not prepared, it can be difficult. So what do? Let us do whatever preparation that is required. Dr. Komal, can you explain what are the preparatory qualifications required for a student of Brahma Vidya? Dr. Komal Prasad, please.
Thank you, sir. Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Vedanta is for those sincere seekers seeking liberation, seeking permanent security and support. It is not for a casual reading or studying. It is not for academic scholarship. It's like a medicine for a particular purpose. Like for a medicine, we have indications for use. If the patient is suffering from this problem, give this medicine. Like that, we have qualifications or eligibility for use of Vedanta. It's for only those who wish a remedy through self-knowledge. So what are the requirements to become a seeker? Swami Paramarthanandaji gives them as 4 Ds: discrimination, dispassion, desire, and discipline. Sadhana Chatushtaya sampathi. Viveka. Viveka is the right understanding of 2 terms. What is anityam or impermanent, and what is nityam or permanent. Differentiation of the impermanent and permanent, differentiation of the ephemeral and eternal is discrimination. They are as different as 2 poles of a magnet. If you look at the universe, we discover one object exists within the framework of time and space. Every object is subject to birth and consequently to death. And since I do not experience anything beyond time, I can say that the whole world, whole universe is impermanent or ephemeral or perishable in nature. Fame, position, possession, money, relations, for that matter, coronavirus, car, mountain, earth, stars, sun, think anything, none of them are eventually permanent. And since the whole world is perishable, it can never give us lasting security or support. Nothing in the world can give me lasting security or support. Therefore, the right judgment is never depend on the world, never rely upon the world for lasting security and support. The world cannot give it. Anitya Vastu cannot give it. That does not mean that world is useless or that world should be rejected. That's very important point. The world can give a lot of things, and certainly you can use the world for a lot of things. World can give us entertainment, education, opportunity for service, opportunity for growth. But when it comes to lasting security and support, leaning on the world is risky. And if you want to lean on something, if I want lasting support and security, I should turn towards Nitya Vastu alone. This Nitya Vastu refers to permanent or eternal thing. In scriptural language, it is called Brahman. In religious or Puranic language, it's called God. This understanding is called Nitya Anitya Vastu Vivekaha. It's like a magnet, 2 poles, Nitya and Anitya. Next slide, sir. So, how to practice this discrimination? With every experience, analyze and learn. Is it permanent or impermanent? I use my reasoning, logic, or yukti. I depend on scriptures to guide me differentiate between eternal and the ephemeral. Keep on stroking that iron bar with the discrimination magnet through a competent guru. And this Viveka will become a reflex with every experience, with every object, person, emotions, thoughts we deal with. Everything perceivable by our senses is limited by time and space, is anitya. Once magnetized, the ability to see every experience as a mixture of nitya and anitya, and discriminating these two poles, and that is Viveka. Walking away, getting repulsed from anitya, is vairagyam, dispassion. Yearning for nitya vastu, getting intense attraction to nitya vastu like a magnet, is mumukshutvam, a desire. Next is vairagyam, dispassion. That's the second qualification. Passion is clinging to the world for security and support. Using the world for entertainment is not passion. Using the world for education, serving is not passion. But leaning onto the world for security and support, especially psychologically, that is called passion. And having understood that the world cannot be relied upon for security and support, gradually withdrawing from this world or stopping leaning on the world for security and support is called dispassion. This does not mean running away from the world, nor rejecting, but psychologically, when I need security and support, I change the channel. It's like a TV remote or settings button in your mobile. I have both channels, world channel and God channel. If I want entertainment and education, I use the world channel. For security and support, I change the channel. This changing of the channel when I need security and support is called dispassion. Use the bridge, but do not build a house on it. It's like use WhatsApp, but do not store bank details in it. Use them appropriately. That's dispassion. Next slide, sir. The third qualification is very important. It's called desire or mumukshutvam. This is the desire for freedom from the problems caused by depending on the world or anitya vastu leaning. Insecurity with regards to family or everything else is not the problem with anitya vastu, but it's my mistake that I expected permanence out of impermanence. Wrong expectations are the problem, and the problem caused by the wrong expectations or dependencies is called samsara. Mumukshutva means strong desire to be free from this samsara. So when a person wants to get rid of this mess, this is called desire for freedom or mumukshutvam. Not just desire, an intense desire, yearning. Like in the story of Shishya who asked his teacher, I have served you for so many years, when are you going to teach me the path of liberation? The Guru responds and takes him to the river. And once they are inside waters, he pushes his head, he pushes the Shishya's head in the water for sufficient amount of time till the Shishya feels an intense urge to breathe and he gasps out, springs out of water. And then the Guru says, when the desire for liberation is as intense as the desire for to get to your breath, then return and I will teach you the pathway to liberation. So when the desire for liberation is as intense as the desire of a drowning person gasping for breath, then the student is ripe to go for teacher, for initiation into the mysteries of self. As in lighting a lamp, oil and wick is not enough. In fact, if the wick is saturated with oil, it does not light up easily even in contact with fire. It needs to be prepared by gently squeezing it. Then the wick will be ready to catch fire and light up. It is this longing, that is yearning. That yearning is mumukshutva. So discrimination, dispassion, and desire are the essential qualifications to pursue the study of Upanishads. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Dr. Komal, for a nice presentation of the three important qualifications required for a student of Brahma Vidya. We will see what is the fourth and important qualification. Dr. Ravi Shankar, please.
Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Out of the 4 Ds, discrimination, dispassion, desire can be acquired through Karma Yoga. But the qualification of Shatka Sampatti or discipline can be acquired through Upasana Yoga. Karma Yoga and Upasana Yoga together give Jnana Yogyata or Sadhana Chatushtaya. And this Sampatti only takes us to the next step of Jnana Yoga. In the next slide, we see that the fourth qualification of Shamadhi Shatka Sampatti is a sampatti, it's a treasure, and this is Shatka, that is sixfold, beginning with Shama. It is SHAMA in English and not KSHAMA. It is not Shama. This is an inner discipline or personal discipline. We must learn to manage ourselves before we like to manage people around us. In the next slide, we see the question which is raised in Tattva Bodha as Kshama Adi Shatka Sampatti Ka, and the answer given is Shama, Dama, Uparama, Titiksha, Shraddha, Samadhanam Cha Iti. Let us look at these sixfold discipline in the next slide. Shama is mind control. It's the mastery on the mind. Legend has it that Swami Vivekananda was challenged in the United States to putt a golf ball, and he did it the first shot. When asked how he did it, he said, mind control or Shama. Keep all the thoughts aside, except the one which is of utmost importance at that moment. And that is well brought out in this Bhagavad Gita shloka, Yatato hati kaunteya. But mark these words, Indriyani pramathini haranti prasabham manaha. The essence is that the Indriyas can distract the manaha even in a wise man, and hence we must be alert. In the next slide, Damaha explains sense control, mastery over the sense organs. Chakshuhu adi bahya indira nigraha. We know that 80% of all the inputs that come to our mind is through the eyes, the chakshu. The gross body is actually the instrument of the subtle body. All the outwardly directed sense organs are the doors to the mind, and they can be very deceptive. We must develop an ability to withdraw the sense organs from these external objects. Actually, as Vedantins, we have to look inwards. We must withdraw them like a tortoise, so well brought out in the Bhagavad Gita shloka, Yada samharate chayam, kurmo angani vas sarvashah, indriyanartasya prajna pratishtita. Such a withdrawal leads to prajna pratishtita, which means the knowledge that we gain is not just bookish, but it becomes firm. In the next slide, we see Uparama as a method to reduce extrovertness. Have time for ourselves, for self-enquiry. We turn the mind inwards, we reduce our actions, and we practice swadharma, which means we continue the nitya karmas of puja, japa, or sandhya vandana. But as Lord Krishna said, swadharmapi chavekshya, and mark these words, dharmyadi yuddha kshetra anyatra kshatriyasya na vidyate. In a dharma yuddha, the only swadharma of a kshatriya is to fight. All of us have our samanya and vishesha dharma, our profession, our work, place, people, relationships, and all such activities. But what is the true dharma of a human? The swadharma of a human is to know our true nature through self-enquiry, and that is the practice of Uparama. In the next slide, we see what is Titiksha. It is forbearance or mental toughness. It is the inner strength to bear a non-conducive situation. There are dualities in life called dvandvas, pairs of opposites, like heat and cold, happiness and sadness, ragaha and dveshaha. A cheerful acceptance without cribbing about this situation is titiksha. Now, man craves for many pairs of footwear, but he is happy with one pair of shoes as compared to the one who has none. Sri Krishna says, Traigunya Vishyo Veda Nistraigunya Bhavarjuna Nirdvandvo Nityasatvasto Niryoga Kshema Atmavan. He says, increase the sattva guna, then cross over all the three gunas, use the guna for artha, dharma, kama, but transact above the level of the yogakshema, be mentally tough, become an atmavan, which means in this context, become a karma yogi, don't be a karmi. In the next slide, we see Shraddha as faith in the Guru and the Shastra Upadesha. It should be an explicit faith. It should be without intellectual arrogance. It is not blind faith. Vedanta encourages questioning the teacher and then reflecting on the teachings till all the doubts are cleared. This is a part of Mananam and Nididhyasanam. In the next slide, we see Samadhanam is focus, the ability to be one-pointed, almost like concentration. All the thoughts that come in the mind are called vrittis. In the right direction, they take the boat to the shore. If turbulent, they can sink the boat. The shloka from the Bhagavad Gita, 2nd chapter, Indriyanam hi charatam yan manogni vidhiyate tajasya harati prajñam vayur navabhivambhasi, clearly shows how the boat can go to either directions. The thoughts should be like a dhara of honey or oil that flows from a bottle. Even if Shravana and Mananam happens, without this Samadhanam, there is no wisdom and there is no Nididhyasanam. So this discipline with the other 3 Ds is Sadhana Chatushtaya sampathi, which makes one sampanna or an adhikari. And that is the first stage of Jnana Yogyata Prapti. That leads us to the 2nd stage of Jnana Prapti with the grace of the Guru. Hari Om Sir.
Thank you, Dr. Ravi Shankar, for concluding the required qualifications for a spiritual student. We need these 4 qualifications. The next big question is, how do I get these 4 qualifications? The first 3, that is Viveka, Vairagya, and Mumukshutvam, that was explained by Dr. Komal, is attained through Karma Yoga. The last qualification described by Dr. Ravi Shankar is gained by Upasana Yoga. And once you are able to do these sadhanas, I become an adhikari, I become more eligible, and then Brahma Vidya should become susukam. There is one more important qualification which is brought in the Bhagavad Gita and in the Patanjali Yoga Shastras, which Swami Paramarthanandaji talks it as the 10 commandments of Hinduism, the 5 yamas and the 5 niyamas, which bring about a set of values that all of us should have in order to be able to study and make full use of Brahma Vidya. We come to the next topic for today, and that all deals with what is not me, the anatma aspect about me, primarily dealing with my body, which can be divided into 3 parts or into the 5 koshas or the 3 avastas that we have. And the opening talk about the 3 bodies will be by Dr. Sanjay Marotra. Dr. Sanjay, please.
Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. What is Vedantic knowledge and why do we need such a knowledge? And to answer that, all human beings, including all of us listening to this conversation, we have a natural jignasa. We want to know about certain facts of this existence. For example, what is this creation? How did this creation start? Is there a God? Where is He? Why did He create this world? And what will happen to me after my death? These are the very, very important questions which a human being should and must ask at a certain age in his life. Next slide, please. There are 2 kinds of vidyas or knowledge which are described. These are called as the apara vidya and the para vidya. All knowledge or study which we do in life to work, which is to do our purushartha, to earn money, get a pride, get position and prides, are called as apara vidya. For example, study of physics, chemistry and humanities, it is apara vidya. On the other hand, any knowledge which is to understand life, who are you, what is this Atma, what is God, is called as Paravidya or higher knowledge, which is contained in Upanishads and Bhagavad Gita. Dr. Divakar has introduced this term Tattvabodha, which is a Prakarana Grantha, which provides this understanding, which gives you the knowledge about what is the self-knowledge and what is the vocabulary which is to be utilized in knowing that. Next slide, please. Our body is divided into various parts, and as doctors, we study these various parts and organs to understand how this body works. Shastras have also divided the anatma part, which is what we are discussing here, into three. The second is called as the Kosha panchakam, which has 5 divisions or components. And the third is called as Avastatrayam, which has also 3 parts. Here, I shall explain the Shariratrayam. Next slide, please. The gross body, or in Sanskrit, we call it the Sthula Shariram, is a part of a description called Shariratrayam, which means threefold body of a human being. And we all understand this very easy for us to understand. Sthula Shariram is the gross body. Then we have a Sukshma Shariram, the subtle aspect, and the Karana Shariram, which is the causal body. And I'll be telling you about these 3 aspects. Next slide, please. Now, what is the function of this body? The function of this body is to carry this Atma, and this body, which is the gross body, with the Atma, which is the divinity in us, is called as Jivatma. So, what is the nature of this Sthula Shariram? This gross body is a temporary abode. It can be compared to a house on lease, and this is associated with certain modification. Vikaravat etat sthula shariram. This body is subject to continuous change and modification, and these are called as Shad Vikara, 6 kinds of Vikara. Next slide, please. And these are, which you can understand very easily, Asti Jayate, Vardate, Viparanimate, Apakshiyate, and Vinashyati. This physical body is initially as a potential existence in the womb of our mother, is born into the world. It grows up to a certain age, which is what we call as Vardate. Viparanimate, stays in one shape up to a certain age. Then Apakshiyate, decays and disintegrates, and Vinashyati, perishes or dies and decays and merges into the Panchabhutani, which are the 5 elements which we have maybe discussed elsewhere. And this is the physical body. Etat sthula shariram. Next slide, please. Now, what is this sukshma shariram, or the subtle body? Why do we call it subtle? We call it subtle because it is not perceptible to the sense organs of the others. Indriya agocharam. For example, if you ask, where is your mind located? We know where is the mind, mostly somewhere in our heads. But someone else can know this mind? The answer is no. So how is this subtle body created? It is also created by the same 5 elements, but in the subtle form. One more aspect is added to this subtle body, which is your karma phala. In the sense, in living in this world, we are always a karmi, and we become a karta and a bhokta. And that makes us subject to papa and punya. Next slide, please. So if you compare this sukshma and the sthula sharira, the sthula sharira is a physical structure which is made up of the 5 elements, which are gross and tangible: earth, water, fire, air, and space. Sukshma shariram also has the mind and intellect, along with the subtle aspect of these 5 elements, which are also in the subtle form. Plus, your actions of karma phala is added to it. Next slide, please. So the sukshma shariram goes through experiences. It creates memories, likes and dislikes, happiness and unhappiness, and it gives you an identity and a name. And it gives you a sense of me and mine. And this is what the Jivatma is. Now, what happens to this after death? The gross body goes through modification, which I told you about, the Shad Vikara, Apakshiyate, Vinishyati. And it goes to the gross element. It becomes part of matter again. It becomes carbon, hydrogen, oxygen. What happens to this Sukshma Sharira? It is long lasting. It travels many lives. It takes another body. It goes through the same process of karta bhokta and creates papa and punya, and thus it goes through the process of punarapi jananam, punarapi maranam, and the cycle goes on and on and on, unless you seek moksha, which is the fourth dharma purushashta. Next slide, please. Now, what is karana shariram, which is the causal body? The seed form of both gross and subtle body is called as karana shariram. It is everlasting. It is a bit difficult to understand, but I think probably I can make you understand by some examples. The universe is created and it is destroyed, which we call as pralayam, which is the Sanskrit term. In scientific term, at the time of pralayam, there is no matter. So the subtle aspect of this existence, as well as the gross aspect of this existence, goes to unification. And that process is called as singularity. The Big Bang is the singularity becomes manifestation. And this singularity is also called as nothingness. There is no mind, no object, no knowledge. So gross and subtle are in its seed form. I mean, that existence is called as the causal body. Next slide, please. Now, here is an example of that. So for example, if you look at the seed of a mango tree, that seed would have properties of the gross structure of a mango tree. For example, it will become a tree when it comes out of earth. It will have leaves, which will have a certain shape. But in the seed form, it is not manifest. Similarly, the mango which comes out of it may have a certain taste, may have a certain smell, the leaves may have a certain healing properties of that. And that is the subtle aspect. In the seed form, the gross and subtle is embedded. And that is called as the causal state, which is what happens at the time of the, what you call as the pralayam, or when the universe becomes unmanifest. Here, thus, this is the expression of the Shariratrayam, and it completes the discussion of this. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Dr. Sanjay, for dealing with a very difficult topic. And it is nice that we have medical doctors speaking about the Shastric aspect of the three bodies. Now, as doctors, we have studied the human body. And when we study the Shastras, we see the wisdom of the ancient rishis who may not have physically studied the body as we have studied. And yet the wisdom that they have given us is so meaningful, particularly in the context of understanding human problems and the human need for liberation. And therefore, there is absolutely no conflict from a scientific understanding. To add on to what you said, the nice example of a gross body and a subtle body can be given by a mobile telephone and the SIM. Now, the moment the SIM is detached from the mobile telephone, it ceases to function. It is like once the subtle body is come out of the gross body dies. The moment the subtle body leaves the gross body, that is the death of the gross body. In our own life's experiences, we would have had a number of mobile telephones, but the same data, the same original SIM card has moved from so many instruments, from one instrument to another. Like that, our body is an instrument that lasts for a certain period of time, but the memory card that we carry it goes from one life to another life. That is demonstrated by the subtle body, represented here by the SIM card. If you want a comparison which cannot be really compared to that, Atma Tattva, which is the enlivening principle, is the universal mobile signals that we can, which enlivens the body, not directly, but through the subtle body. So too, Atma Tattva cannot directly enliven my body. Be Atma, the consciousness, enlivens the subtle body, and the subtle body enlivens the gross body. That is why when the subtle body separates from the gross body, my body may still be there, Atma is still there, but the body is no longer alive because the subtle body is not there. We now come to an understanding of the three worlds that we live in, Avastatrayam. Dr. Kiran, if you can explain this to us.
Thank you. Now we know our body is composed of multiple layers. What this entity experiences and the state it will be is called Avastatrayam. It is into three states, that is Jagrat Avastha, waking state, Swapna Avastha, dreaming state, and Sushupti, this deep sleep state. To give you an example, water is in liquid, ice, and vapor state, but the water molecule which runs through all these three states is same. So let us study this states in three different medium, that is condition, nature of the experience, and the dominant medium. In waking state, the mind is fully functional. All faculties are functioning. Example, emotional, rational thinking, etc. Here, the I identifies with all three bodies only in this state. So the experiences are external and real. Here, gross body, the counter of experience is open and transaction happens through it. So experiences appear to be external. On careful examination, our own body experiences such as pain, breathing, etc., if you are very silently and listening, appears as if it is coming from outside. Here, the self identifies with physical body only in this state. What is the tool? The sense organs are the tool, and it will have doership and enjoyership, karta and bhokta, because all three faculties are function. Here, everything appears real and a concrete, tangible world. What I experience, the others also experience similar things. It is an objective and it is consistent and continuous. So if I borrow money from my friend, tomorrow I am expected to return that money by my friend. Due to memory, imprints are created, and as a result, we become attached to object and experience. They say what we actually see is 80% from the memory and only 20% we see as it is. This is beautifully explained in Mandukya Upanishad, verse 3. Jagrata sthanaha bahish prajnaha. Now, coming to dream state. Here, the self identifies only with mind, but note, physical body is required and memory faculty alone is functioning like a VCP, which replaces various combination of memory projected while sleep. Here, no new experience is possible. It is full-fledged but internal, antapajnaha. Others can't see what I dream. Here, enjoyer, enjoyed, and the enjoyment is created by mind. Here, no doership, only enjoyership is there. The dream world is not always rational. How much ever we like to believe, we never dream of a thing which we have never experienced before. Often suppressed vasanas spring up. This is non-continuous and inconsistent. That means tomorrow's dream is different from today. Now, coming to deep sleep, it is a beautiful state of I did not know anything or ignorance blissful. Here, this occurs as a part of sleep cycle. One experiences absence of all objects, thoughts, and emotions. When I wake up, I say I slept well because only a small part of ego runs through. Here, experience is one homogeneous mass of awareness, as explained by Dr. Sanjay. This is all the uh, three states in a nutshell. Now, so far so good, but this is the real googly. There is one more state called four state or turiya. This is the actual real state. It is not like 1, 2, 3, 4. This on this turiya is all the three other layers states laid, like water which appears in different forms like ocean, waves, tides, etc. Like silence, which is a template for sound. This is the real state. This is beautifully explained in Mandukya. Na anta prajnaha, na bahish prajnaha. So wait for it. Let us now study levels of reality or satya. How real is this based on these three states which I just now studied? Pratibhasika Satya occurs in dream. This is inconsistent, much lower level of reality. As soon as we wake up, we know whatever has happened, good or bad, is just a dream. Now, in Vyavaharika, it is more consistent. What I see, what others see are almost similar, and tomorrow also is same. Today I'm Kiran, tomorrow I'll not be somebody else. When we wake up from this Vyavaharika to Paramarthika, even this appears to be less real. Now, let us contemplate on this story. Once Janaka had a dream that he has lost all his kingdom and has become a beggar. This beggar goes to sleep and as if dreams as if he is king. Every night Janaka dreamt the slave and he became worried. And when Ashtavakra came, he asked him, "Oh Guru, please tell me, am I the beggar who is dreaming to be a king? Or am I this king who is dreaming like being a beggar?" So don't rush for the answer. Contemplate on this throughout our Upanishad class, just like how Ashtavakra revealed. Our sir will reveal it for you all. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Kiran, for
Thank you, sir.
explaining these three states of consciousness. Essentially, what the Tattva Bodha or all our Shastras trying to explain, that we don't live in one world, but we live in three worlds, or the Tripura. And this goes on like a merry-go-round. Right now, we are awake. The moment we sleep, we can go into a dream state and then into a deep sleep state. And this is a cyclical process. All these come from the domain of the Anatma. And therefore, when we invoke Brahma Vidya, when we invoke Lord Shiva, through spiritual wisdom, Shiva is able to destroy all these cities. In the sense, it makes them mithya. It makes this that we don't give too much importance. Just like when we wake up from a dream, we do not give importance to the dream events. Our next awakening should give us less importance to our body and all of our body related events. The same thing is now divided in a functional aspect called Kosha Panchakam, and it will be Mamata who will explain to us. Mamata, please.
Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Kosha Panchakam finds its scriptural reference in Yajurveda in one of the important Upanishad called Taittiriya Upanishad. A part of the shloka in the next slide, sir, that references Kosha Panchakam is Tasmadva etasmadanna rasamayat anyontara atma pranamayaha tenaisha purnaha, and it goes on, which talks about the Kosha Panchakam and its 5 components or layers. In the next slide, the 5 layers are the outermost layer, Annamaya Kosha, the food layer, followed by the Pranamaya Kosha, the energy layer, Manomaya Kosha, the mind layer, Vijnanamaya Kosha, the intellect layer, and finally, the innermost one is Anandamaya Kosha, the bliss layer. Further elaborating on these koshas, the Annamaya Kosha is the physical body that is born and nourished out of Annam or food. When we say, I have a headache or I am old, we are identifying with the physical body. Pranamaya Kosha, the energy layer which enlivens the physical body, corresponds to the functions or physiological systems of the body anatomy. It consists of 10 organs, Panchaprana, the 5-fold energy functions, and the 5 organs of action, that is Panchakarma Indriyani. Panchaprana lends energy to the 5 organs of action. Hence, this kosha is also referred as Kriya Shakti. For example, when we say, I am not well or I am tired, such experiences is attributed to the Pranamaya Kosha. In the next slide, Manomaya Kosha is all about the mind, comprising of all forms of emotions, doubts, and thoughts. It is the psychological aspect of an individual and is also referred as Ichha Shakti. Manomaya Kosha consists of 6 organs, the 5 sense organs of knowledge and the mind. To understand it better, when I say I'm thrilled, or I'm angry, we are using the mind or the Manomaya Kosha. Vijnanamaya Kosha is the abode of the intellect, the rational faculty. All the knowing, the thinking, and the judging and reasoning occurs with this kosha, which is otherwise referred as the Gnana Shakti. It consists of 5 sense organs of knowledge as well as the intellect or the buddhi. For example, what we are doing right now, that is trying to understand this session, is by using the Vijnanamaya or the intellect. Further analyzing, for any given situation, the Vijnanamaya kosha knows and understands, Manomaya kosha desires, and Pranamaya kosha acts on it, which can be referenced in the following shloka of Lalita Sahasranama. Ichha Shakti, Kriya Shakti, Jnana Shakti, Swarupini. And Chittam, or remembering the experiences, and Ahankara, or the ego, that gives us the sense of personal identity due to self-ignorance, are common to both Manomaya and Vijnanamaya kosha. Finally, the Anandamaya kosha can be equated to our previous slides, to our Anandamaya kosha can be equated to our unconscious personality or the dormant personality that is in us, which is expressed at appropriate time. Further looking at this with an example, when we are in deep sleep, none of the 4 koshas, that is the mind, the body, energy, and intellect, exist in our experience. All the emotions, problems, and thoughts are in unmanifest form in the unconscious, and being unknown in the blankness or darkness, they are blissfully ignorant. We experience ananda or complete bliss during this time. Hence, it is known as Anandamaya Kosha. In essence, in the next slide, sir, this Kosha Panchakam is categorizing the individual based on the function. That is, gross body or Sthula Sharira, which is the Annamaya Kosha. Subtle body or Sukshma Sharira is subdivided into 3 koshas, Pranamaya, Manomaya, and Vijnanamaya Kosha. And the causal body or the Karana Sharira is the Anandamaya Kosha. In the last slide, the 5 koshas cover the knowledge of our true nature, the self. The self can be discovered by negating or removing each of these koshas. The idea is well illustrated in the nesting dolls as shown in the slide. However, this cannot be done by just taking away one kosha after another, just like peeling the onion. It is important for us to take a step back and understand the wrong assumptions and erroneous conclusions we draw about the koshas. Adi Shankaracharya says, these 5 koshas are the layers of ignorance. They go through constant modifications. For example, ever-changing body, fluctuating emotions, varied decisions based on the situations, are to name a few. They cannot be real, and ignorance of this fact makes us falsely identify with these koshas and consider their problems as our own. To take away these koshas would be to remove the wrong conclusions about them, which would mean remove the false identification with the koshas and remain unaffected by their problems or attachments. That is the only way to reach the ultimate truth, which is the self. Thank you, sir. Hari Om.
Thank you, Mamta, for a nice explanation of these 5 koshas. These understanding of these topics are particularly useful when we come to study the Upanishads, because it is in the Upanishads, particularly the Taittiriya Upanishad, both Brahmananda Valli and the Bhrigu Valli, where the teacher makes the student goes through various levels in the process of discovery of who I am. As we know, Mano Buddhi Hankara Chittani Naham. We go on dissecting, I'm not this, I'm not this, I'm not this. And finally, you discover emptiness. When you come beyond Ananda Maya Kosha, you discover nobody. And the teacher makes you aware of the one who knows there is nothing. And that is the process With that, we have concluded today's class. The last of our introductory topics will be in the next week. So in 3 classes, we are giving an introduction or a foundation to all the Vedanta topics. The most difficult topics will be coming in the next week to know who is this Atma, who is the real me. What is this creation? What is this world? Is it real or is it an appearance? The Upanishads talk of Jivatma Paramatma Aikyam. That means the essence in me is the same of is the essence in God. Is that true? How is it possible? And finally, you see a lot of disparity in the world. Some people so blessed, some people not so blessed. We talk of Punya, Papa. And what are these? What is about the law of karma? If we do a little bit of reading from the text, because as I said, now we are into a more advanced level, then our ability to understand the next class becomes much more easier. There is a particular sadhana, a particular exercise I have requested. From my personal experience, I know this sadhana is going to deliver you a lot of dividends. Every morning, I request all our students to do this particular sadhana, that is to chant these 3 shlokas of Prata Smarami. The first one I introduced last time. I will quickly go through this. Pratasmarami Hridi Samspuradatma Tattvam. Early in the morning, I acknowledge and I am grateful to that Atma Tattva which emerges in me, which is of the nature of Sat Chit Ananda, which is the highest goal, Paramahamsa Gatim. Those who are seekers of the highest, they want the 4th, not Jagrat Swapna Shushupti, but the 4th state, which is in and through all the 4th. That 4th is the witness of the Jagrat Swapna Shushupti, which goes on like a cycle. And this verse says, Tad Brahma Aham. I am that Brahma, Nishkalam, which is indivisible. That means there is no separate Atma between you and me. And I'm not a combination of these elements. So this is what the Upanishads say about our real nature as Atma Tattvam and not a combination of all these elements. That is in the first verse that we have. In today's class, I will explain the 3rd verse. The 3rd verse goes like this. Pratar namami tamasa param arkha varnam. Early in the morning, I do namaskara. And the best form of namaskara is when you identify yourself with the person whom you're doing namaskara to. What am I doing namaskara to? I'm doing namaskara to, or I'm acknowledging that Atma Tattva. And the highest form of prostration is when you dissolve the prostrator in you, that I become one with the Atma Tattva. I acknowledge that I am that Atma Tattva. That nature of the Atma is Arkha-varnam. It is like sun. It illumines everything, but it is something even more extraordinary than the sun. The sun can illumine everything, but the sun can never illumine darkness. Wherever the sun illumines, darkness disappears. But this sun of consciousness within me is tamasaha param. The word param normally means the highest, but here the word param means something that is beyond. Normally, when you say beyond, we talk about spatially beyond, but here the understanding is beyond means unaffected. For example, you will say somebody is beyond corruption. So when you say it is tamasaha param, which means this light is not influenced by darkness, that means it can illumine darkness. How is it possible? For example, I know that I do not know Italian. So this is a matter of ignorance that I do not know, but I know that I know. My nature is Purnam. I am complete. All our problems in life is Apurnatvam, and all our struggle is to attain to Purnatvam. I acknowledge early in the morning that my real nature is I am already that. I am Purna, I am Sampurna. Sanatana Padam. I am there for all time. I am of the nature of Purushottama. Purushottama discussed in the 15th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, where Sri Krishna talks about 3 Purushas, Kshara Purusha, all that I see in this world which can deteriorate and decay, that is Kshara. Then there is the unmanifest or Maya, which is the Akshara Purusha. And Shri Krishna reminds that in addition to these two, there is the third Purusha or the Uttama Purusha, who is the witness of all this, and that is called Purushottama. Early in the morning, I acknowledge that the Atma Tattva within me is the Purushottama. And finally, these two words, Yasmin idam jagat ashesha murtva rajva bhujangam iva pratibhasitam vai. We have the example of the rope and the snake. Because of inadequate light or partial amount of light, there is a mistaken appearance of a snake which can cause a lot of problems on the rope. So too, according to the Shastras, this whole world is an appearance, pratibhasitam vai. It is an appearance and it is not all real, but the substratum of them all is this Atma Tattva. It is upon this Atma Tattva, because of the upadhi of Maya, I'm able to see this whole world, and this whole world is an apparent world, is not so real world. Quickly, I will do a recap once again. The best way to do Namaskara is to identify the Atma Tattva as myself, as said in Saddarshanam. Brahma Smaranam is Brahma Nishta. When you dissolve the meditator is the ultimate form of meditation. When you say Tamasaha Param, means it is Asanga, it is beyond. And this Atma Tattva has the ability to illumine ignorance in me. Now, if I have to be a student, I should have one knowledge, one ignorance. What is that knowledge that I have? I know that I do not know. I have one ignorance, but I know that I do not know. And because I know that I do not know, I will come to study a particular topic. And what is the teacher has? A teacher has two knowledges. The teacher knows the subject and the teacher knows that he knows. Only when you know that you know, you will be able to teach. And a person comes to learn when he knows that he does not know. This awareness of ignorance is Tamasaha Param. Arkavarnam, this Atma Tattva is like the sun. It is self-evident. It does not need anything else to prove it, just like the sun. It is Purna. It is Sanatana. And I've already described the three Purushas, Kshara Purusha, Akshara Purusha, and the illuminator or the consciousness Tattva as the Uttama Purusha. The whole spiritual journey initially begins by Drik Drishya Viveka. The first Vedantic principle is I am someone other than the body. I am the Drik, the whole world that I experience is Drishyam. And by doing so, I have created a division between I, the seer, and the world that is seen. Now I have created a Dvaita. Now there are two things, the seer and the seen. As long as there are two, there will always be fear. There will always be the struggle to possess that which I do not have. And there is samsara. Now, in Advaita, one has to swallow the other. That means the consciousness has to include the anatma component. And how does this happen? Through the understanding of what is called karya karana sambandha. For example, I am the cause of my dream, and everything in my dream is not apart from me. Just like gold is the cause of golden ornaments, the ornaments are not apart from the gold. And the more you understand that I am the cause and the world is the effect, then the world is just like you have the snake which appears on the rope, so too the whole world, according to this particular shloka, according to this Vedanta, this world is of a lesser order of reality projected by the Atma Tattva within me through the upadhi of Maya. And therefore, I use this world for transaction purposes, for entertainment, for recreation, for service, for knowledge. But I know that I am of the higher order of reality and nothing in this world can therefore affect me. With this principle, I begin my morning sadhana. Over to you, Venkatesh Prasad.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, friends, for your serious indulgence in the class. Next Friday will be the third and the last session about elementary aspects of Vedanta, after which we'll be taking up Upanishads. Before that, on Monday, our Viveka Chudamani class will continue. With this, we have come to the end of today's session. Let's meet on Monday, same time for Viveka Chudamani. Please log in by 6:45 p.m. local time. Om Purnamadah Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevavashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om.